What if Apple, a company that's famous for its super premium, pretty expensive laptops, just decided to do something totally wild? What if they took the powerful brain from their very best iPhone and put it inside a MacBook, and then sold that MacBook for a price that just seems way, way too good to be true? Well, that's the wild story we're going to unravel today. Okay, let's really dig into this question, because it's at the heart of everything. I mean, on the surface, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it? We're all taught that a laptop is supposed to be more powerful, more capable than a phone. So why on earth would Apple, a company that prides itself on building some of the most powerful laptops in the world, decide to take the engine, what we call the chip, from a tiny phone and stick it inside a full-size laptop? To get it, you have to look at Apple's whole history. For years and years, MacBooks have been the go-to for professionals, for creative people, with price tags to match. This move, this idea of putting a phone's brain in a laptop, it signals a huge change in how they think. It's not just about a new gadget, it's about completely redefining what a MacBook can even be and who it's actually for. So the rumored name for this new laptop is the MacBook Neo. And to understand where it fits, just picture Apple's current lineup like it's a car dealership. You've got the MacBook Air, which is kind of like your perfect, reliable family sedan. It's fantastic, it's great for most people's everyday needs. Then you've got the MacBook Pro. That's the high-performance sports car, the one with the roaring engine built for professionals who need every ounce of power they can get. But for years, there's been this gap. There hasn't been a true entry-level option, that really affordable first car for a new driver. And it looks like the MacBook Neo is designed to be exactly that. It's not trying to be an Air, it's not trying to be a Pro, it's a whole new category for Apple, and it's all defined by one single thing. And here it is. This is the number that just flips the entire script. $599. Now let's just put that into perspective for a second. The cheapest laptop Apple sells right now, the MacBook Air, usually starts around $1,000, often more. A MacBook Pro, that can easily set you back $2,000, $3,000, even $4,000. So the idea of a brand new MacBook for $599, that is absolutely groundbreaking for Apple. But how do you even do that? You can't just take your $1,000 laptop and slash the price in half. You have to make some really, really smart decisions, some clever compromises. And Apple's biggest, most important decision had to do with the most expensive part of any computer, its brain, the chip. So this brings us right back to the central mystery of this whole explainer. On one hand, hearing a phone's brain in a laptop just sounds, well, like a downgrade, right? It sounds like a compromise you make to hit that low price. But what if it's not a downgrade at all? What if it's actually an incredibly smart move? To figure out if this is genius or a huge mistake, we have to stop calling it a phone brain and really start to understand what this chip is all about. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. The specific chip or brain we're talking about inside this MacBook Neo is called the A18 Pro. Now, the name itself isn't that important. What's crucial is where it comes from. This is the exact same family of chip that Apple designed to power its most advanced, most expensive phone, the iPhone 16 Pro. Just think about that for a second. The engine that was meticulously engineered to be incredibly powerful, but also incredibly efficient to save battery life in a device that fits in your hand, is now being asked to run an entire laptop. This chip is what's known as the Central Processing Unit, or CPU, and its job is pretty simple. It does all the thinking. Every calculation, every command, every click, it all goes through the CPU. So this MacBook is getting a brain that was trained for the specific needs of a phone, but there's a little secret about the version of the chip they're putting in this MacBook, and that secret is the key to everything, especially that $599 price. Okay, so let's put on our detective hats for a minute and really decode what's going on with this A18 Pro chip. Because saying the model name is one thing, but it's not the whole story. See, the specific version of the chip that finds its way into this affordable MacBook has a really interesting backstory. And that story comes from the real, messy, imperfect world of manufacturing things that are mind-bogglingly complex. It's a story about trying to achieve perfection, but then finding a brilliant way to use the ones that aren't quite perfect. Now, this right here is probably the most important idea in our whole discussion, so let's take our time with it. The term you need to know is binned chip. This is the magic trick that makes that $599 price tag possible. So imagine a giant sterile factory where Apple makes these computer brains. They don't make them one at a time, they print hundreds of them at once on a big, thin, circular wafer of silicon. It looks kind of like a giant, shiny pizza. Now, this process is so unbelievably precise and complex that making every single chip on that wafer 100% perfect is basically impossible. A single speck of dust, an error so small you can't even see it, can create a tiny flaw in one little part of one chip. In the old days, a chip with any flaw at all might just get thrown in the garbage, which is a huge waste of money and resources. But now, they have a much smarter system. They test every single chip that comes off the line. And if they find one with a tiny flaw in a very specific part, let's say one of the little sections that handles graphics, they can just electronically switch off that one tiny broken part. The other 99% of the chip still works perfectly. This slightly imperfect but still incredibly powerful chip gets sorted into a different bin, and that's where you get the name bin chip, to be used in a cheaper device. Think of it like this. A baker makes a huge tray of perfect chocolate chip cookies, but one cookie comes out of the oven a little lopsided. It's still a delicious cookie made with the same premium ingredients. It just isn't picture perfect. The baker doesn't throw it out. They just sell it for a little less money at the counter. That is exactly what a binned chip is. It's a premium product that just isn't 100% flawless, which makes it perfect for a budget-friendly machine. And this slide right here shows us exactly what that lopsided cookie looks like in the real world. Let's break it down. Inside every modern computer chip, you have different teams of specialists. The main brain, the CPU, does the general thinking. But then you have a special team of artists, and their only job is to handle everything you see on the screen. Your videos, your games, your photos, all the graphics. These specialists are called graphics processing units, or GPU cores. Now on the left, you see the perfect A18 Pro chip that goes into the expensive iPhone 16 Pro. It has a full team of 6 of these artist GPU cores, all working together at full strength. On the right, that's our binned chip for the MacBook Neo. It is the exact same chip, but during the testing process, they discovered that one of those 6 artists wasn't working quite right. So what did they do? They simply and elegantly deactivated it. So now, the chip runs perfectly with a team of 5 artists instead of 6. This tiny difference is the whole secret. Apple gets to use a chip that would have otherwise been wasted, and in return, we get a much cheaper MacBook. It's an absolutely brilliant strategy for efficiency. To really get a feel for what this means, let's use the highway analogy you see here. Think of those GPU cores, those artists inside the chip, as lanes on a highway for data. The perfect chip in the super expensive iPhone 16 Pro, with its 6 GPU cores, is like a massive 6-lane superhighway. It can handle any amount of traffic you can imagine. We're talking thousands of cars, buses, and giant semi-trucks, all zipping along at top speed with no traffic jams. This represents super demanding tasks, like playing a cutting-edge 3D video game or professionally editing a 4K Hollywood movie. Now, let's look at the MacBook Neo's chip. It's the same highway, but one of the lanes is closed for construction, leaving 5 open lanes. Now, for your normal everyday driving, checking email, watching YouTube, writing a paper, scrolling on social media, a 5-lane highway is still enormous. You'll feel like you have the road to yourself. You won't even notice a lane is missing. Everything will feel perfectly fast and smooth. But if you try to send that professional movie editing project, that huge convoy of semi-trucks, down the 5-lane highway, you might start to see a little bit of a slowdown. It won't be a total gridlock, but things might get a little congested. And that is the real-world difference between 5 cores and 6. For most people, most of the time, it makes no difference at all. So we get it now, we understand what this 5-lane highway chip is. But the next logical question is, okay, so how good is a 5-lane highway, really? To figure that out, we need to put it into context. We need to compare it to other chips. First, we'll see where it lands within Apple's own family of chips, and then we'll see how it stacks up against the competition, the chips you'd find in Windows laptops. This is going to give us a really clear picture of how much horsepower this MacBook Neo actually has under the hood. This table is super helpful for placing the Neo's chip where it belongs. Let's just walk through it together. At the bottom, our baseline is the A17 Pro. That was the chip in last year's best iPhone, a very, very fast chip. Next up, you see the 18 Pro, the one in our MacBook Neo. And as the table shows, its main brain, its CPU, is about 15% faster than last year's model. That's a solid, noticeable jump. It means that for all your basic day-to-day stuff, it will feel snappier. But then, you see the M series chips like the M1, M2, and M3. These are a completely different animal. These are the engines Apple designed from the very beginning to be used only in laptops and desktops. They aren't phone chips that have been repurposed. So if we go back to our car analogy, the 18 Pro is like a fantastic, modern, super efficient engine from a luxury sedan. But the M series chips? Those are the engines from a Formula One race car. They're built for one thing and one thing only: insane performance. They use more power, they cost way more money, and that's why you only find them in the expensive MacBook Air and MacBook Pro models. The takeaway here is pretty clear. The MacBook Neo's chip is a fantastic phone chip and a good step up from last year's, but it's just not playing in the same league as a true, dedicated laptop chip like the M series. All right, what about the competition? How does our A18 Pro stack up against a rival chip from a high-end Windows laptop, something like a Snapdragon? This is where things get really interesting. See, there are these tests called benchmarks, which are designed to push a chip to its absolute breaking point and then give it a score. It's like a powerlifting competition for computer chips. And in some of those raw strength tests, the Snapdragon chip might actually post a slightly higher score. It might lift a little more weight. But that score doesn't tell the whole story of who's better in the real world. Apple has this massive secret weapon called optimization. Think about it like this. Apple builds the engine, the A18 Pro chip, but they also build the car, the macOS operating system. Since they design both, they can make them work together in perfect harmony. This means that for the things you actually do every day, the A18 Pro often feels smoother and faster. And it does it all while using less battery power. It's like you have two students. One student just crams all night for a test and gets a great score. That's the Snapdragon. The other student might get a slightly lower score on that one test, but they deeply understand the subject, so they are way better at using that knowledge to solve real-world problems. That's the A18 Pro. And as you can clearly see from the chart, both of these are just dwarfed by the M series chip, which is truly in a class of its own. Okay, we've gone deep. We've talked about binned chips, GPU cores, highways, all the technical stuff. But now let's get to the question that actually matters to you. Is this the right laptop for me? Who is this for? And just as importantly, who should stay far, far away from this laptop? Let's translate all this tech talk into a simple, practical buying guide. This slide really breaks it down into a simple yes or no. Let's look closely at the yes side first. This laptop is going to be an absolutely fantastic choice for millions and millions of people. If you're a student, this could be the perfect machine for taking notes in class, writing papers, and doing research online. If your main computer use is just everyday stuff, browsing the web, sending emails, watching Netflix or YouTube, listening to Spotify, this machine is going to feel blazingly fast. It will handle Microsoft Word, Google Docs, and basic spreadsheets with zero issues. You can even do some light photo editing, like touching up a picture for Instagram, and it'll be a perfectly smooth experience. All of these tasks are like regular cars on our 5-lane highway. There's more than enough room. Now, let's look at the no side. This is equally important. Who is this laptop not for? Well, if you're a video editor who works with high-quality 4K video files, this is not the machine for you. That task is like trying to send a fleet of massive semi-trucks down the highway. You're just going to cause a traffic jam. If you're a professional graphic designer, a 3D artist, or a serious programmer, you need that 10-lane superhighway that an M-series chip provides. And the same goes for serious high-end gaming. This laptop is a fantastic daily driver, but it is not a professional-grade production machine. Now, this slide makes what is probably the most surprising and important point of this entire explainer, so let's slow down here. The word bottleneck refers to the weakest part of a system, the part that slows everything else down. Imagine pouring water out of a bottle. It doesn't matter how big the bottle is, the water can only come out as fast as the narrow neck will allow. The neck is the bottleneck. We've spent all this time talking about the chip, the computer's brain. But here's the twist. For the person this laptop is actually built for, the student, the web browser, the Netflix watcher, the chip is so powerful that it will almost never be the bottleneck. The things that are more likely to limit you, the real bottlenecks, are two other components, the RAM and the display. So let's start with RAM. RAM stands for random access memory, but a much easier way to think of it is as your computer's disk space. The chip is your brain, and RAM is the size of the desk you have to work on. This laptop comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is like a pretty decent-sized desk. You can have your textbook, your notebook, and your laptop open all at once, no problem. But if you tried to open 30 huge textbooks all at the same time, your desk would get super cluttered and you'd slow down. For the average person, 8 gigabytes is plenty of desk space. But it's more likely you'd run out of desk space before you ever ran out of brain power from the chip. The other potential limit is the 60 Hz display. Hertz, which stands for hertz, just means times per second. A 60 Hz display redraws the image on the screen 60 times every single second. This is the standard for most screens, and it's perfectly fine. But more expensive laptops can have 120 Hz displays, which refresh 120 times a second, making things like scrolling feel incredibly fluid. Now, for the target user of this laptop, 60 Hz is absolutely not a problem. But technically speaking, it's a bigger limitation than the chip itself. The main takeaway here is that the so-called phone's brain is actually one of the strongest parts of this laptop for the people it's designed for. Okay, so let's pull the camera back, let's step away from the microchips and the gigabytes and look at the big picture. This move isn't just about technology, it's about business strategy. I mean, why would Apple, one of the wealthiest companies in the entire world, even bother to make a cheap laptop? This is more than just a new product. It's a calculated move on the giant chessboard of the tech industry. And believe me, there are some very smart reasons behind it. Let's break down these strategic reasons one by one. First, and maybe the most important, is the war for the classroom. For the last 10 years or so, schools and students on a tight budget have almost exclusively bought Chromebooks. They're simple, cheap laptops that run on Google's software. Apple has been almost entirely shut out of this massive market. The MacBook Neo is a direct shot, a direct attack on the Chromebook's reign. It's Apple finally saying, hey, we can play at this price point too. Second, this is all about the long game, about getting customers for life. Think about it. If your very first laptop, the one you get when you're 13 or 14, is a MacBook, you get used to how Apple's software works. You get comfortable inside their ecosystem. Fast forward a few years, you graduate, you get a good job, you have more money. What laptop are you going to buy? You're probably going to stick with what you know and upgrade to a more expensive Mac Pro. It's about building brand loyalty from a very young age. Third, it's honestly just brilliant marketing. The whole idea of a MacBook with a phone chip is controversial, it's interesting, it gets people talking. It makes tech writers and YouTubers, like me, create content debating it. That generates millions of dollars in free advertising and discussion. And finally, it creates a brand new, much wider doorway into the world of Apple. So many people look at Apple products and wish they could afford them, but a $1,000 laptop is just too much. This $599 price is a new, much more accessible entry point. And Apple is betting that once they get you in the door, you might buy an iPhone, then an Apple Watch, and eventually upgrade it to that more expensive Mac down the road. And so that brings us to our final, much bigger question. For decades, the story of personal computers has been a race for more. More power, more speed, faster, better, stronger, every single year. But the MacBook Neo asks a totally different question. What if the future of computing isn't about having the absolute most powerful machine money can buy? What if, for most of us, the future is about having a computer that is simply good enough? A machine that is perfectly powerful enough for the handful of things that 90% of us actually do, day in and day out. We've already seen this exact thing happen with our phones. They're so incredibly powerful now that most of us never even come close to pushing them to their limits. This MacBook Neo suggests that laptops are heading in that very same direction. It challenges the entire industry's obsession with raw power and instead puts the focus on efficiency, on accessibility, and on being smart. It's a bold statement that maybe for a lot of us, the future of computing doesn't need a Formula One race car engine. Maybe a smart, efficient, and perfectly capable phone's brain is all the brain will ever really need. Now, before we wrap up, let's just slowly walk back through everything we learned today, just to make sure it all stuck. First, we started with the mystery of the MacBook Neo, a new, rumored laptop from Apple with that unbelievable price tag of just $599. Second, we uncovered the secret behind that price, a really clever manufacturing process. The laptop uses what's called a binned chip. That means it's the same powerful A18 Pro chip from the top-of-the-line iPhone, but it's a version that had a tiny, harmless flaw in just one of its 6 graphics cores. So Apple simply turned off that one core, leaving a perfectly working chip with 5 cores that they could sell for a lot less. Remember the baker selling the slightly lopsided but still delicious cookie at a discount? That's the idea. Third, we use the highway analogy to understand what that means for performance. The perfect 6-core chip is a 6-lane highway, great for heavy-duty professional work. Our 5-core chip is a 5-lane highway, still incredibly fast and smooth for all your everyday tasks, like browsing the web, streaming video, and writing documents. Fourth, we place this chip on a power scale. We saw it's a solid upgrade over older phone chips, but it's not in the same universe of power as Apple's M-series chips, which are those true race car engines built just for laptops. Fifth, we clearly defined who this laptop is for. It's absolutely perfect for students and for anyone who uses their computer for everyday tasks. And we defined who it's not for: creative professionals, serious gamers, or anyone whose job depends on heavy-duty performance. And finally, we zoomed all the way out to see Apple's master plan: to take on Chromebooks in schools, to hook young users into their ecosystem for life, and to create a new, much more affordable way for people to join the Apple family. By putting a phone's brain in a laptop, Apple isn't just making a cheaper product. They might just be showing us what the future of computing looks like for all of us.
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to the latest update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end, and see you in the next video.